Good evening and welcome to the shop. I see that you've brought in this engine for assembly. Seems like you've run into a few snags getting it built, so we'll get it built together and I'll perhaps talk you through some of the details of how it works as we do so, just so you have some more knowledge if you have any issues in the future. Building an engine is just one of those basic skills that everyone should know. We've got all of our parts here, and most importantly, I have the Haynes repair manual, which will give us detailed instructions for how to assemble this. Basically starting with the sump and the bottom of the crankcase. These pistons and the crankshaft, and I'll talk a little bit more about these as we go. So why don't we just dive right in and get going here. There is something I want to take note of. In our assembly manual, as we look for parts from these various sprues, parts labeled A make cylinders 1 through 4, and parts labeled B make cylinders 5 through 8. And these cylinders are numbered. We view the engine from the rear. The right side will have cylinders 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the left side will have cylinders 5, 6, 7, and 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Something we'll keep an eye on as we go through the assembly process. Now, to start with, we have our pistons. They have already been attached to the connecting rod, which will then attach to our crankshaft. And that will be our first step, is to attach our pistons to the crankshaft. So to do so, I'm going to need bearing caps that will allow me to hook each of these pistons to our crankshaft. So let's find those bearing caps. Located in this bag. Let's get this open. And we have our 8 bearing caps because we are building a V8 engine. 8 cylinders, 8 pistons. these off our sprue here. There we go. Just gonna clean up the edges of those a little bit. Just want to ensure we have a nice, neat fit, good tolerances for all of our parts, so the engine will run efficiently. Just get these cleaned up, quick trim. Perfect. All right, so now we're going to be attaching each piston to the shaft here. We're going to screw these together to hold it onto the crankshaft. I do want to make sure I get this in the right orientation. The longer end is going to go on this side of our cylinder block. Okay. And we'll want to ensure that each piston is going to line up with the appropriate cylinder in our block here. So I will be starting here. Grab a screw and my screwdriver. Just get that inserted here, and I will mate it up with the connecting rod. And we'll have one on the other side as well. Some pressure on to ensure the screw joins them properly. Okay, and that is our first piston on our crankshaft. And the crankshaft is really where it's at in the engine. If our goal is to create rotational motion in order to turn our wheels, we need the engine to output rotating shaft, and that is our crankshaft. Pistons literally are going to crank this around, and the output of this will pass through the clutch into the transmission, ultimately to the wheels. So this is really what takes the force from combustion moving the piston and the crankshaft. We'll get our pistons added, we'll put it in our cylinder block, and then the crankshaft itself will sit in this lower crankcase with the cylinder block on top. So that's where we're headed. Let me just get the other pistons mounted. Those joined up. Get our screw. Those joined together, and same thing on the other side. Alright, our first two pistons installed, 6 more to go. This is a flat, plain crankshaft, which I won't really dive into the details there, but there are a couple different ways you can orient your pistons in a V8 engine like this. A less common arrangement for a road car, though there are some that have it. It's more typically found in a race car engine. It has a lot of inherent vibration, why it's not typically used for road cars. It has performance advantages, less mass, can rev faster. Gets a little trickier with more pistons on here. Okay, making progress. 3 more to go here. Get our screws in here. Okay. Alright, and last piston to attach to our crankshaft. Get our screws started here. Oops. And join up here. Let's go. Let's get this side in. And finish tightening this side. There we go. All right. So we have our crankshaft with 8 pistons attached. Right. You can see a bit how as the pistons are going to move, the crankshaft will rotate. Alright, so now we're going to fit the crankshaft to the cylinder block. Each piston moves in its own cylinder. This is where combustion will occur and press the piston down. So we need to get these slotted in. I think it's just going to be kind of a wiggling game to get these into their respective cylinders. almost there. Just gotta get this last fellow in. There we go. All right. I just had to get each piston oriented into its cylinder. Remember 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8. We can dance. This is a machinery ballet. The pistons move, they crank the shaft. This is where we're getting the rotation. Alright, so we've got our cylinders in the block. They're attached to the crankshaft. Let's look at our next assembly step. We have our sump, which is where the oil drains out of the cylinders into the sump and will be recycled back in to the engine for lubrication. And the lower crankcase, which is going to mate these surfaces to hold the lower end of the crankshaft. Alright. So we need to fit the cylinder block to the crankcase. So the crankcase has a different number of studs than indicated. But I think we are okay. Alright, so I'm going to need to invert this and place it onto lower crankcase, so let's do that. Looking good. So that is seated, checking that the crankshaft turns and the pistons move appropriately. Okay, looking good. We have a slightly tricky operation of screw install. The screwdriver is definitively not long enough. To deal with that in a moment. Position. Get these started. Tighten them up. Use our blade here to hold the screw until I can get it down there. Challenging process. mission accomplished. Cylinders turn. Now we're going to need to fit the valve covers. Alright, so this one is marked A and this is marked B. Those will match up with the appropriate side of the engine. So these have the top of the cylinders, and you can see the circular design here, and there are holes in it. These allow the entry of air and fuel, and also exhaust to exit the cylinder. And the valves will open and close these holes in operation. So let's get these components assembled. I have my right and my left. I'll need to remove elements from this package. Piece. Set our timing belt aside. Now I'll need to separate these and keep them arranged by side. The A piece. Smaller A piece, and then the B side. And again, just a quick trim. Clean those up. All right. So we'll need to orient these appropriately. This will go here and this will go on this side. Just double checking fit before I insert here. Cover these into their slots, and I'm going to push down. Ensure they lock into position. And it will be the same on this side. Making sure we slot into the correct position. And everything clicks into place just like that. And vice versa on the left side. want to slot in. There we go. Everyone is below their tab there. We'll repeat on the other side here. Okay, those pieces locked in. Alright, so this is my right side and my left side. And these holes are where the valves are going to go. The smaller plate will be our exhaust valves, and the larger plate has the inlet valves. So I'm going to need to pull out these parts. Going to need these springs, since these will return the valves to their normal position when they're not being pushed by the rocker arms. Now, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 4 exhaust valves on one side, 4 inlet valves, 4 inlet and 4 exhaust. 2 valves per cylinder, 1 inlet and 1 outlet. So all these little tiny pieces are part of our valve assembly here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These are the smaller ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These are the larger ones. The larger valves here are the inlet valves, which will let air into the engine. The smaller are the exhaust valves. So let's get our valve stems off of here first. Just pop these off. These valve stems are all identical between the exhaust and inlet valves. Just a quick touch, since these actually slot in. Make sure there's no gunk on the top here. Make sure these will go into the valve. There we go. These up here. Okay. We're gonna start with the exhaust valves. We want these smaller ones. Set them in my little container here so they don't roll away from me. Already trying to drop them. Alright. And while we're at it, I'm going to grab the intake valves as well. And I'm going to set these to the side over there. Get the sprue out of my way here. Lots of little parts here. In some, it's fairly complicated apparatus, but the principles behind each part and each subsystem are all pretty simple at the end of the day. And a project like this can help illustrate the different pieces, how they interact with each other. Of course, more modern engines have a ton of electronics to handle a lot of the tasks that were once done more mechanically. Alright, so this might be a dangerous step here. Gonna try to pop some springs off of here. Alright, gonna need 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's start there. A little room here, move our stems. Alright, I'm going to start on the right side. The exhaust valves go in the narrow portion here. So I would put a spring on, and then we'll insert through the valve slot and put one of our valves on the end here. Alright. So there, when we push it down, we'll spring back up. You can see the spring is holding it closed. When it gets pushed down, that will open up, which would allow the exhaust to escape the cylinder. And we'll time everything so air goes in, intake valve will close. We'll set the fuel on fire with a spark plug. As it burns, we'll then open the exhaust to let that out of there, and we'll start over again. So let me get my other exhaust valves installed here. Ooh, the spring got bent a little bit. There we go. Push down through. Try to launch it in my attempt to show you the process here. Alright, spring on. Gonna push through, and then I will press the valve onto the end there. Alright. They're very delicate springs. Push through and snap it on. last one on this side. And we'll press it on. There we go, R. There we go, our exhaust valves. Let's do the same on the other side. And here you can see that size difference. The intake valves are larger on that side. So again, let me get my springs at the ready here. 2, 3, 4. Insert valves down. Going on the small side for the exhaust. Pop it on. Get that firm connection to hold it on there. Number 2. 3. And last exhaust valve for the left side. Perfect. Exact same process, but with our larger intake valves. Let's free some springs up here. Keep hold of this taped screw. 1, 2, 3, 4. Insert valves down. Reminds me of my youth spent turning ballpoint pens into weapons. Alright, so there, now we can see the intake valve, the exhaust valve. Again, the intake valve here in this engine is larger. Right. Insert. Go. And one more on this side, the right side. All right, all of our valves are in the right side. Just 2 valves per cylinder in this engine. You'll often hear like 4 valves per cylinder in more modern cars. Technology has gotten so fancy. Optimizations for efficiency and power. But this is a pretty simple engine with just a single intake valve and a single exhaust valve per cylinder. get the intake valves for the left side installed. Just two more. We'll move on to the next phase. Going to pop on the intake valve, and last one, spring insert, and pop on. And now we are good to go. The left side. All right. Next we need to fit the rocker arms, and there are going to be 16 of these, one for each of our valves. And they should be here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. And these are going to actuate the valves by pressing on them. So I need to remove these from our sprue here. Just pop these off, halfway done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and as usual, just quick trim here. Don't want anything interfering with the smooth operation of our V8 motor here. V8, of course, having that beautifully sexy roar. Flat plane crankshaft will sound different than a cross plane. Alright, those are set to go, and we're going to have to slide these onto the respective shafts here. So we need the metal rods, we need these shorter ones, that should be these. And we have to get our orientation right, so it's specific for each section here. As you can see, these have a certain orientation. So I will start this direction. For rocker A. Alternating their direction. Here we go, get this the right direction, and they're going to be opposite on the two sides. So if we went that way first, gonna go the other direction for B. Just alternating that direction each time. So This way they should all line up appropriately with their valves. I'll double check before assembly just to make sure that we got this correct. Alright, so this will be the B side, and this is our A side. Right. So we'll need the upper cylinder heads here, which will hold these. Just pop these off. Alright, so we have our A side and our B side. We need to slot these into groups to get them to fit. Just like that. Alright, and this will sit right. We are making good progress, but still plenty to do. But we'll get it done. Because when there's a job to do, we get it done. Get the left side situated here, and then we'll need to add the bearing caps to secure these in place. Which we have here. Gonna have two on each side here. Quick trim as always. Pretty good. I just want to get these screwed down to hold those in position. Get my screws started here. Make sure we're lined up in the right spot. There we go. Go ahead, tighten those down. And these, of course, are specific to each side, so we are committing here that we've done it right. Can only hope. I believe that we have. not, we'll be in for a nasty surprise in a bit. Okay, right side. Let's do the left side. Get us started there. And the other side of it. Oops. Other side too. There we go. Just tighten those down. And let's get the one on this end. Start that. And start our other one as well. And we'll just tighten those up. The rocker arms, of course, have to be arranged differently, but doing a lot of symmetrical tasks here. All right. Those are our assemblies for the upper cylinder heads. Let me grab the right side here. Because we need to install our gaskets. Oops. Seal everything off. The engine, when we join these parts together, so we're not spraying fuel and oil everywhere. Now, do need to double check on the alignment of these. They are slightly different, just barely different. Can you spot the differences? All right, so we need to make sure the correct setup here. Let's try the other side. Promising. Check this one. Try it this way. So that fits on the pins that way, and also sort of fit on the pins that way, and that is the way it is lined up with the cylinders. So let's double check this side. Links up, and it's aligned with the cylinders. Okay, so I think is correct. be our left side. This will mount here to line everything up. Alright, the numbers on this should face the outside of the engine, so that is good, a helpful reference point. This is the front of our engine, so this is left, and this is part B, so we should have the correct setup here. And then we need to lock these in with screws to hold it in place. Looks like there are 6. This is where I could use another hand, quite frankly, so if you wouldn't mind chipping in a little. Okay, there's that. I'm gonna get one more in here. Take this corner. Is that gonna stay? Alright. There we go. And do this one in the middle here. Right. Piston's still happy. Now, these screws that go on the top have to go through this narrow tube. So we're going to use, oh dear. We're going to use this little tiny screwdriver, but it's kind of tricky. Get down in there. There we go. Two more to do, and we'll do the other side. And then here. Yep. Okay. And one more. Alright, the left side is on there. Let's set up our right side here. So let's get our gasket back on, seal things up here. Lined up with our cylinders. That's good. This is the way that doesn't line up. This is lined up with our cylinders. This hole and peg kind of don't love each other. Okay. Alright, so now we can fit this on. Get started. The screw in, tighten that up, another screw here, just make sure we're all lined up. There we go. good. One more on the bottom row here. Just gonna screw that in. There we go. And we'll get the screws in the top here. Don't always drop the first one. Get it in the little shaft here. Oh dear. That is an unfortunate turn of events. You ever played those games where it's like the ball, like a little ball bearing on a track inside? You have to like maneuver it around. Let's get one in to help us out. And this guy as well. Make sure we're tight there. Let's see now if we can't get this fellow where he needs to go. There we go. Just gotta use a different tool, mix things up, try a different approach. Okay, and now we have the right side mounted as well. The world's largest but best fidget toy. Okay, now we have one of the trickiest parts of the whole operation. I'm gonna move this beast out of the way. We need to get the camshafts assembled. So I'm gonna slide them out of here. They just had these washers on here to hold those springs. I believe those are part of our operation. And these have a slightly flattened side, which is going to help hold the cams in place. Grab the sprue with our cams. The lobe of the cam is going to operate the rocker arm. So as the cam rotates, we'll lift the rocker arm as that lobe gets to it and presses it upward. So the timing of how all of the valves are going to open is very dependent on how these cams are arranged on the camshaft. So it's critical we put them on there in the correct way. And to do so, they are labeled. So for camshaft A, which will be the right side of the engine, the right side, I'm gonna need parts A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H, and they have to go in a very specific order. So I'm going to do those by taking them off here one at a time and to make this task as confusing as possible, the parts on the sprue are labeled A, H, K, K, D, E, J, J, B, G, L, L, C, F, M, M. So we're going to have to be very conscientious as we do this. So let me set the left one aside. And we also need to make sure that this rib, they all point the same way. So we have kind of this gibbous moon cut out that this will slide into. So I'm starting with A. A is on there. You can see how that lobe will rotate. Now I need to get B, which is over here. Clean it up just a bit. Okay, B is going to go on here to make sure the rib is pointing the same way, which I almost didn't do. There we go. Right, so now these two have a different orientation. Alright, let's find C. I believe it was over here, yes. C. And again, a quick trim, that flash on there from the sprue. Just make it clean, rib pointing the same way. Find our flattened edge and slide it on. Continuing in order, we need D, D and E are next to each other, amazingly. To again, rib the same direction, and our flat edge, and insert. Perfect. E. E is for engine. Ribs are facing the same way to slide the flat edge in properly. There we go. And now let us find F. F is here next to the M's. Find the flat side, there we go, almost there. Clean up G here, rib facing the same direction, make sure we have the flat side. And our last one will be H, which is next to the K's. The right side is labeled A through H, and the left side uses M, M, L, L, K, K, and J, J. You can tell me why in the comments below. Alright, our first camshaft for A. See the different orientations of the lobes. I'm going to set that next to A here. Make sure we keep our bearings about us, so to speak. And this side will start with J, and we do J and J, and K, K, L, L, and M, M. I have my two J's here, the two Jakes. Didn't finish watching. Snow Chinatown. Make sure I do my ribs this way. Now we need to do K and K. I'll pop off my two K's here. Two K sports. We just play word association games when we're assembling engines. Ribs the same way. There we go. Okay. Getting there. Let's grab L and L. To L, tool. We're using tools. We're really reaching now. Clean this up a little. LL Cool J, was that the better move there? Alright. Slide it on here. Oops, we almost put the rib going the wrong way. Be very, very bad. Alright, then we have one more pair. M and M's, two M's. One short of 3M. Can get a little boring in the shop here, you just have to talk to yourself. Rib going the same way on the flat side, same orientation here. This is the camshaft for the left side of our engine. So I will set it on the left side. And now we're going to fit these onto our cylinder heads here. Alright, so it is giving me guidance to orient this from A to H, and I think that is the direction we have. When I set these down, I may have turned them around, so hopefully we have gotten that correct. But I believe that is the case because they have some pretty good diagrams. And I believe I am matching those. So this is for the right side of the engine. And I need to separate these out because they're going to sit in these spaces so we can fit you in here just like that. Okay. Ooh. Let's just double check, make sure everybody's where they need to be. They are. And then if you'll stay in place for me, we're gonna fit you on top. And we want to make sure that this is lined up the way we expect. I'm going to rotate it back to face me. What I want to see is that the rocker arms line up with the valves, which they do. I'm going to make sure that this is attached, and then I can better show you that. So I don't want to lose my setup here. Screw that there, and one here as well. Tighten that down, and same drill, the other two are going to be down through these holes. So let's see if we can get these seated in there. And last one, drop it in. We will tighten that down. Now that we have that in, let me show you what we're working with. So you can see the long arms of the rocker arms are lined up with the valve underneath. That is what we want. And as we turn the camshaft, the lobes are going to trigger each of those valves by moving the rocker arm. And so as this rotates, we'll have both valves closed. We'll open one, open the other, turn them to close. And so this is how we manage the cycle of the engine. We're going to open the intake valve so air can flow in. For combustion, we're going to need air, fuel, and an ignition source, which will be the spark plug that will trigger combustion. That explosion will push our piston down. That's what's turning the crankshaft. And as it does so, open the exhaust valve to let the exhaust gases from that combustion escape. The piston will come up. We'll open the intake valve and let the piston draw in more air, and we'll light it on fire again. So that is the cycle of the engine, but the camshafts are using those rocker arms to open the intake valves and the exhaust valves in time with the 4-stroke cycle. Alright, so getting back to the actual assembly here. Gonna again make sure I'm lined up the way I want to be. We're gonna get our camshaft on here. And this should be in the correct orientation, I think. should be good. Let me set this fella on top. Get lined up here. Make sure everybody's where they need to be. And so this looks like the right orientation, but I'm feeling a little resistance to it setting in place, so I need to make sure about what's happening. I think it's just the shape of this is yeah, this is like just slightly warped. That's why it's not just slotting perfectly into place the way we would hope. But I think it's just a little bit of flex in the plastic. If you're building an engine and don't have to bash something into place with the hammer, well, it's probably defective anyway. Screwed in and double check that all of my valves are oriented correctly with the rocker arm, and then we'll get our screws into this side. We'll make sure we're just seated properly. Okay. Get our last screw in here, get that seated down there, and tighten it up. Yeah, make sure we have a nice solid fit everywhere. Perfect. Camshaft moves our valves. Still turn our pistons, and our engine will happily chug along. All right, so have those fitted now. Going to fit our rocker covers, which will be these two pieces. They are clear so we can see the operation of the valves. Just trim that up. Okay. This is our A side. This is our A side. The sloping side goes towards the middle of the engine. And again, I'm gonna just screw these on here. started. Get this in position. Make sure it's where we want it to be. Make sure our rockers are well covered. The last one situated here. And we will just tighten these down. Perfect. Actually put the last one in since there are 6 screws that hold the rocker cover on. 6 screws here. Right. Nicely covered. Let's do the same for the left side. Get it in position here. Bottom row. That started. Get our last 2 screws in there. And finish off this left side rocker cover. Alright, we now have both of our rocker covers on, and what we need to do now is fit our crankshaft sprocket. Confirm it is part 19, and we'll also need the camshaft sprockets, 2 identical parts, part 20. Grab those off of the sprue. Our rotating bodies, make sure they're cleaned up here. Vital for our engine operation. Alright, so the camshaft sprocket is just going to slide on here. Alright, we just slide this on. And these are going to go onto our camshaft. Like the cams, there is a flat side that will go on. Same here. There we go. Because we do need to make sure that the cams are oriented properly for the positioning of the engine. Now we need to fit the timing belt and the idler pulleys, which are going to help maintain how it moves. To grab our timing tool, so try to show you this. This is what's going to help us orient these camshafts. So we need to get these pieces into the hole here. Orient you here. Same thing on this side to get it so we're in these holes. And same over here, we'll get that pressed in. All right, so let me show you. We've used the timing tool to align these camshafts, and now we're going to have to fit the timing belt, but we need our idler pulley. Alright, so we'll put this one on, and this one on. We'll also put, actually, let's make sure these are cleaned up. Alright, so we're going to put 3 of these on to help get our belt fitted, and then we'll get the last one on. Alright. Alright. So, going to hook it here. It's going to go under these 2, which is difficult with our tool in the way, so I'm going to take it off in just a second. So I have this orientation here. Loop it around. We need to go around this as well. Right? Just going to get everyone working together here. From a different pretty happy, I think, if you'll stay there. Okay, now let's see if we can get this tool out without ruining everything. Yes, okay, perfect. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Alright. Everybody is where they need to be. So, now let me show you that. See, we've been able to wind the belt around the crankshaft pulleys. Tool kept them aligned around the crankshaft. And now we have to add the timing belt cover, which is here. And this little component that goes in it. Get these pulled off of here. Just the usual trim. Make sure we're happy. Alright, so let's have a look at this cover. This piece, it looks like it just slots in to that section there. Alright. So it's going to be another 6 screw attachment. And I'll try to show you. Make sure this piece is here on the pulley as it should be. And this is going to literally cover the timing belt. So we need to get you each piece in its respective position. And get it to slide into place just like that. Still have all of our pulleys correctly oriented with the belt. Let me just make sure this is held in place, and then I can show you. Get that started. Let's get started over here as well. Make sure you get one down at the bottom too. We're holding all of our pieces in the appropriate place. Okay. Again, 6 screws. Let me just make sure I'm in place here. Alright, so tighten that down, let me show you. See, we've just put this cover over the belt. You can see the timing belt's orientation around the pulleys. Let me just fully secure this. We're getting very close to wrapping things up here. Most of our major components installed at this point. All right, we have our timing belt cover. Now we need to fit our water pump. The water pump, of course, vital for cooling the engine, circulating water. Some pieces falling off here already. So let's have a look. 25 and 26 is these two pieces. They're kind of hard to read in the light. Our water pump elements. There's some beautiful chrome. Careful with these, we don't take away all that chrome. Okay. Get this together here, and it's just going to sit right on the front of the engine here. Like this, and I just need to get some screws in there to hold this on the front of the engine. Go. 3 screws here. Let's get this one in. Make sure that's securely fastened. Perfect. Then we have a crankshaft pulley. So it looks like part 27 is the one that had to come off here. Well, here's something hilarious. Comes with a screwdriver that I could have been using. Well, maybe that'll still come in handy. Alright, so this goes on the front crankshaft here. Has a slot in it, and we use a washer and screw to secure this. Let's give our new tool a shot here. I can get my actual screw actually in there. It's a wee bit tricky. There we go. Prefer the infinite torque provided by this guy. hold the crankshaft steady to get that attached. And we have the fan pulley, part 28. Got a bigger piece of flash there. Trim this guy up. Alright. Alright, so this goes on the front of our water pump here. And again, we need washer and screw. It's going to go into that slot. Kind of tricky to get this one in there. Yeah. In there. Now we will line it up this way. Perfect. That's what we needed to do. And we now need to attach the fan to this. We'll use 2 screws to do so. Which of course rhymes with David Caruso. Our other screw in there to get it lined up just the way we need. Perfect. This fan's going to be a little bit wobbly in operation, but we'll see. Alright. Our fan, which helps move air over the engine. And we need our fan belt, which will be this little fella. We gotta get it around our fan here. Position it in the pulley. And then the other end will go around the crankshaft pulley. Make sure that's oriented properly. Okay. So this way when the crankshaft turns, the fan will also turn. The crankshaft driving the timing belt, so everything working in sync. And we're going to add some batteries to our motor. Pop putting the battery cover on the bottom here. Three AA batteries. So I have 3 Duracell batteries. Not sponsored. Motor driven by batteries. What'll they think of next? Alright, batteries installed. Now, fit. Now we're going to fit our flywheel to the other end of the engine. This has an electric motor that's gonna drive, since we can't set off explosions inside of our plastic, but the flywheel is just a rotating mass that helps the engine turn smoothly, provide some inertia. Racing car would have a much lighter flywheel so it can rev up quicker, less concerned about smooth operation of the engine. Alright. Disentangle these so we can have a look at what we're dealing with here. I believe they are attached, but let's be careful with our wires here. Very nice tangle we have going. Try to get things sorted out here. I will explain what is going on. This elaborate tangle of wires. Okay, just want to make sure I have these separated out. Okay, we're making some progress here. Make sure there's a clear differentiation. We're able to do what we need to do with these. Alright. So that is one. These are our distributors. So a distributor does exactly that. Distribute electricity to our spark plugs. You need to be able to route these to the different cylinders. These are our spark plugs. There's definitely a bit of a tangle here. Is anyone online a master of topology? Help us expedite this untangling. Alright, I think we are pretty much good. So, still a little bit bent in the wires here, so they want to keep tangling. But we'll be able to get that sorted out. Okay. So this one is labeled 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be the right side of our engine, the right side, and 5, 6, 7, 8, remember, is our left side. So we're going to be installing these at the rear of the engine, and they will take electrical power. From our batteries, and what's going to happen is that the distributor, literally metal contacts, this would rotate and those would connect. And when they made the connection, it would transfer electricity to the spark plug for the appropriate cylinder. Modern cars would use an electronic ignition system, which has a computer do all of that, but these were a very physical incarnation. Alright, so we want to put these on the right, correct side of the engine, and the wires are supposed to be at the bottom. There is also a hole in the distributor. That is a D-shaped hole that's going to line up with our camshaft. And so to get ourselves oriented, I'm going to get cylinder 4, to top dead center, where it is now, and then I'm going to fit this on. Should be lined up with that flat edge. There we go. Okay, and so it looks like we put screws in here. We're not going to tighten these down. Just going to hold our position here. Should be one more kind of here on the bottom. Watch out for the wires. state of generally disentangled, and same for the left side here. We're lined up there. Oh, no. Oh dear. Same deal here. Let's get these started. We haven't lost our arrangement here. Okay. We have mounted our distributor caps. So we're still top dead center on 4. And I need the wire for 4. Should be this fella coming out of slot number 4. Alright, so let's insert our plug into the base. So 4 was illuminated. That is what we want. So we're going to tighten this position. Alright, now we need to do the same. I need to get five, which is this fella. Make sure I have number 5. Here we are. And we want to turn the flywheel anti-clockwise 90 degrees. Make sure that piston 8 is at top dead center. That is what I see. Now we turn this again. Well, that's an issue. Take it off completely and see if it wasn't just a case of needing to be really differently positioned. Oh, this is a pain in the butt. 5. So this concerningly doesn't really line up very well. But I think this is like the closest we can get. I did see it turn on. Double check that wire, yeah. Right. Go with it. Everything's happy in the end. Okay, unfortunately, it just doesn't seem particularly aligned, that post and where the distributor should be, but I'm gonna trust it, and we need to install our spark plugs, matching up the number to the cylinder. So there's 8. I'm gonna push in if we can. There we go. Slot it in. Here's right. Holding 6, which is up here. Let's get 5, which is also long, to go up to the front of the engine. I'll get these fitted and try to show you what I'm doing. Here's 7. There we go. All right. And it's gonna be the same thing on this side. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So our spark plug leads come out from the distributor. This is 4, it is the longest one. That's to go up here to the front of our engine. And I'm going to slot it in there. There we go. 3 will be the next one. There we go. And let's make sure we have this correct. This will be 1. So right here up, right here at the back. And then last, we have 2 goes in here. Right, so now, so we fill the cylinder with air and fuel. The distributor will send electric spark to the spark plug, which will light our fuel on fire, create the combustion, which will move our piston down. All right, last few steps here. we have our electric motor. Release the cord here, which is uncooperative at best. So strong. Okay. All right. So this is going to mount in the rear here and engage with the flywheel. I need to make sure we have it positioned for that. Go. Make sure the gears are lined up. Make sure we're not trapping wires. A bit of a dance to get everything into position here. Okay. And we'll need some screws to hold it in position. You can see it's mounted here. Get that started. Get the screw mounted here on the bottom. Well, and let's get the third one in as well. We'll just make sure these are tight to hold our motor on. Perfect. All right, and this has a cover. This would be the clutch cover, right? The engine, the crankshaft. We're powering it with a motor, which is the opposite. Normally, the pistons fueled by the explosion would turn the crankshaft. It would come out here, engage with the clutch, which connects it to the transmission and the rear wheels. So we would put on our clutch cover here. So I have to feed the wire through here, and then we'll get this slotted into place. Alright, there we go. Just took a little fiddling. And again, I'll have to screw in here. You started. Started here as well. seat it into position, and then our last screw here. Seal this on. There we go. All right. We have the inlet manifold assembly. Few elements here. All right. Let's check our orientation here. Let's double check. This fits together. There we go. Nicely slotted in. And then we will I'm gonna do is just double check orientation here. That looks good. Like this, and then we're gonna screw these together. Okay, everything nicely in position. That is what we want to see. So one screw, two screws, and the last screw. Okay, so this is the intake. For combustion, we need fuel, spark, and air. Air is needed for that fuel to burn. So we have our intake, which is going to bring in air, actually just brought in from the outside as you drive. You could use a supercharger or a turbocharger to force more air in to your cylinder so you could burn more fuel. And this is gonna slot in here so it distribute the air into the different cylinders. Just gonna pop that into place there. Make sure it's all locked in on each side. There we go. Have our inlet. Next up, we have something very important. The dipstick, so we can check the level of our oil. Critical that we have oil in the engine. And this has a home back here in the rear of the engine. And we'll slide that fella in so we can check our oil when we need. Alright, and we are really at the end. We just have two important pieces to go. Double check the number on this one. This chrome is really hard to read. Looks like 35. Looks like 35A. So this would be for the right side of our engine. And yes, it looks like the outlet is coming here to the rear as we'd expect, and this will be the left side of our engine. So we burn fuel, air in the cylinder, and then we have to eject the gases out the exhaust valve. But then those need to feed into the exhaust pipes of your car. So we have our exhaust manifold, and that's going to go in place on the side of the engine here, pairing up with the exhaust valves. If I can just get this into position. And I'm just going to press it into place. There we go, that is the right side. Now let's do the left side exhaust manifold. Get out of the way of our spark plug wires here. And we'll just press it in here. Alright, and now we have our exhaust manifolds fitted. So we have completed the assembly of our engine. So we have the block, which has our cylinders in it. The pistons are going to move in those cylinders. The camshafts rotate, which activate the rocker arms, which open our intake and exhaust valves. We let air in from the intake manifold into our cylinders. The piston will compress that. We will use a spark to light the fuel. The force of that explosion will push the piston down, cranking our crankshaft, giving us rotational motion. That's turning the timing belt, which keeps the camshafts moving in sync. It also turns the fan belt and the water pump to help us cool our engine by circulating water through to the radiator, the fan helping move air across that. The turning of the crankshaft will go out through the clutch. Our distributor is on the back, which in sync with the rotation will fire the spark at the correct time. So I'm going to plug in our electric motor. Which, as I said, we're doing this sort of backwards, where we're simulating this with an electric motor to turn the crankshaft to see all the other parts move, versus firing it up and using the burning of fuel to turn the crankshaft. Well, I'm just going to press the start button and fire up our engine, and we'll just see what happens. Alright, you can see as we cycle, the valves moving, the fan turning, pistons moving up and down. I'll give you a better view here. You can see the spark plugs going off as well. Pretty cool. So this is a 4-stroke engine. So what happens is the piston will go down in the cylinder as fuel and air are admitted. So the intake valve would be open. Then as the piston comes back up, it compresses that. So we're going to get a more efficient burn. So as it gets to the top, the spark will go off. And you'll see this as you watch the pistons go up and down. It'll come up, it'll spark, it'll go down. That's the power stroke as the burning fuel sends that piston downward. Then the exhaust valve will open, the piston will come up, pressing that air out, and you won't see the spark. Then it'll go back down, fuel and air admitted again, come up, compress, and then you'll see the spark. So I'm going to turn it on again and tip it so maybe you can see that cycle in action. All right, we have successfully built our V8 engine. Hope it's been informative. I hope you've enjoyed the journey of building it, and you'll be all set to build your next car engine, hopefully. All right, have a wonderful night.